Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff with Fluent American checking in today, focusing today on prepositional phrases. So, again, prepositions are those words like about, above, across, after, against, among, and so many others. So, we're just going to be highlighting some of the most common expressions. Less of a definition video. So if there's a word or a phrase that you see here that you have questions about, you can let me know. I'm in the chat box if you're with us, or you can also let me know in the comments, and I'll be happy to talk more about it. But again, we're focusing more on the pronunciation of these phrases, also paying attention to pronunciation of vowel sounds, also linking between words if we come across those situations, especially where one preposition will end on a consonant sound and the next word will start with a vowel in situations like that. And of course, if you have questions, be sure to just let me know. Starting with some prepositions related to with. Our first one here, with all due respect. With all due respect, it's often a transitional type of phrase. Notice that the stress is going to actually be on respect. With all due respect. With all due respect. So stress is on respect. So you want to make sure that that last syllable of respect, especially, you receives your emphasis. Okay, with all due respect. Also, just a quick note: if you hear some things in the background, my son's around and things like that. So sorry for any noise. Also, with all, you're gonna get that th linking onto the aw sounds, like with all, with all. Hey, thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know in the comments. Okay. Our next phrase, with abandon, with abandon. Notice again that th is going to link with the a and abandon, with abandon. So it's more like abandon, abandon. That th sound is always a little bit of a tricky one. So my suggestions again are to just very lightly press the tip of your tongue against the back of your top front tooth. And again, it sounds like with. You don't need to have your teeth. You don't need to have your tongue in between your teeth. It doesn't need to be like with. It doesn't need to be stuck out that far. It can just lightly press against the top front tooth. With. And again, with abandon. Another note about abandon too. So you get this ah sound, a ban. No, it's not a ban. It's more a ban. So when you get that ah sound that links with a nasal like the letter N, it's again going to break up into two parts. And do a heavy breath out of your nose for that N sound. Abandon. Also note that the last syllable on abandons gets reduced. It's a little bit more of a short I type sound. So it's more like din. Abandon. With abandon. Notice also too, just in terms of stress, when you're saying this phrase, with abandon, do something with abandon. The word, the part that's really stressed is the band part. Everything else is said pretty fast and reduced with abandon. With abandon. The band should be the part that stands out. Some other ones, within walking distance, or within driving distance, within whatever distance. The stress is usually going to be on that middle part. It's like within walking distance, stressing walking. Also, when you're saying walking, notice that ah sound. So make sure your mouth is wide enough and the back of your tongue is going to be high. Ah, wah, walk. Walking distance, within walking distance. Okay? Hey, Isabella, great to see you. Thanks for joining us again. If you have some questions about anything as we go through this, be sure to let me know. Our next one, within reach. Within reach. Again, notice the trend. You're not stressing the preposition, you're stressing the next word, within reach. Something's within reach. Okay? And our last one, with a view. With a view. Again, we get some more linking. With a. So don't just... I think something that's helpful when you're practicing this is not to separate the sounds. It's not with a view. That's not how these phrases are typically going to sound when you're saying them naturally in a conversation. It's going to be linked and joined together. With a view. With a view. Just try practice saying that to yourself a couple of times. With a view. With a view. With a view. And in fact, when it's really reduced and natural sounding, the with is barely heard. It's like with a view. With a view. With a view. Okay, it doesn't need to be with a view. It doesn't need to be with a view. It's just with a view. A room with a view. Okay, if you think of some other prepositional phrases with that you have questions about, be sure to let me know. Our next group, Hey, Ibrahim made it. Look at that. Great to have you again, man. As always, if you have questions about this, be sure to let me know. Um, Next one, prepositional phrases with for. A quick note about this. A lot of times the for is going to get reduced. So instead of saying for, it often just becomes like fur. Fur. You can practice saying that a couple times. Fur, fur, fur. So the F is really light, and then the R sound is also lighter but strong. Fur, If you're having trouble with that sound, what you're doing is you're raising the very, very back of your tongue up. You can also curl up the front of your tongue. Also notice that my mouth is relatively closed. Fur. My lips, you can also tell, are very straight. Fur. Don't worry as much, though, about pronouncing for perfectly because, again, it's going to be reduced. Whatever word's coming next is typically going to be your word that's stressed. Okay, so for instance, the first one, for hire. You can say for hire. You can say it that way, but again, it's typically reduced. Okay, for hire. Notice again, for hire, it also breaks into 2 syllables almost. Hire, for hire. Same thing with the next one, for ages. You could say for ages. There's nothing wrong with that, but a lot of times in conversation it'll be faster. For ages. Notice that also becomes almost like one word, right? Because that R on for or fur is going to link with the A on ages. For ages. You did something for ages, for a really long time. Our next one, for nothing. Like you did something for nothing. So again, you can say for nothing. I did it for nothing. But typically, again, the for is reduced. So just for nothing. I did it for nothing. How about our next one? Notice that the R's are going to link together. For real. Okay? I did it for real. He said it for real. Our next one, for sure. So again, it's like for sure. Lots of R sounds. Not a whole lot of vowel sounds, right? The consonant sounds here are really strong. For sure. And then for the last one, for a while. You want to practice linking the for a while. Making sure that when you say the for make sure that for is not stressed. Okay, it's not for a while. It's usually more for a while. I did it for a while. Okay. One more time on all those. For hire, for ages, for nothing, for real, for sure, for a while. Examples of for. Okay. Real quick, of course, got to plug the Patreon group. If practice like this interests you and you also want to get feedback for how you sound, definitely want to be in our Telegram group because you can send in audio files and then I give suggestions. Be like, oh, you need to open your mouth wider. Oh, you need to hold the vowel longer. Or, oh, the back of your tongue needs to be higher. Things like that. So if you're looking for pronunciation practice to go over these types of sounds, check out our Telegram group option or other options at patreon.com/fluentamerican. Okay. Some other things too. Oh, hi Anja. Thanks for joining us today. If you have questions, of course, be sure to let me know because I'm happy to go over things related to pronunciation, English, life, anything you need. Next, a couple phrases starting with in. So for instance, in debt. Notice that for a lot of these prepositions with in, you're really just going to emphasize like the N sound. So it's not like in debt. You can say it that way. In debt. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, of course, the B in debt is silent. You don't hear that B. But a lot of times you're just going to hear like the in debt. I'm in debt. Okay. Or the next one, in case. Notice that you don't want to release the breath on the N. Typically, if your next word starts with a consonant sound, you want to release the breath on the consonant. So basically, YouTube is our second home. I definitely feel that way as well. I spend as much time with YouTube-related stuff as anything else. The beta also has a question about dropping consonants. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about it. Let me know what the question is. Yeah, I'm gonna write that. Yeah. So again, a lot of times at the end it just comes like a And our next one, in doubt. Notice again you get the ow sound. This is the ow like in town or found. Doubt. In doubt. Also on doubt, you can finish with a held T sound, so you can tighten your throat, tighten your chest, to not let the air escape on that T. So again, you can say in doubt, that strong t, t, t. That's fine. But you can also use a held consonant to make sure that the air doesn't escape. So just like in doubt, in doubt. If that held consonant is a little bit tricky, it tends to be a little bit difficult, especially if people aren't used to it. We do have a video that talks more about held T practice or stop T practice. And again, it's called a held T or a stop T. So again, in doubt, or with a held consonant, in doubt. Our next one, in theory, in theory. Notice that theory, you're stressing the first syllable. But you do need that E sound at the end. I have a lot of students, they want to reduce that final E. They want to say like in theory, theory. But it's more theory, theory, and theory. And then the next one, in terms of, in terms of. Notice here, terms of, like for instance, in terms of the weather, or in terms of our project. That S is going to take a slight Z sound because the M is voiced. It's like in terms, my throat's vibrating on that Z sound. In terms of, also known again, of that F is typically taken on like a V sound. In terms of, again, voiced with your throat. Okay, and a schwa sound on that O. So let's practice reading these again. In debt, in case, in doubt, in theory, in terms of. Okay, and again, the N is typically reduced, not so strong. Next couple of prepositional phrases, starting with under. Under. Okay. Under is going to be starting with a schwa type sound. It's like in fun, fun. Or like but, like under. Okay. And these are also cases where, if you look at our examples here, with the first one, we're going to see some linking between the words, as well as the second one. The first one, under investigation, under investigation. There is no stress in this, under investigation, until the A sound, under investigation, under investigation. Notice that the pitch is going to be pretty flat when you're saying that most often until you get to the A. And as soon as you get to the A, then you're going to have that rise, right? You're going to go a little higher. Under investigation, under investigation. Also note that for investigation, that last syllable, it's a short I sound. So it's not engaging, it's engagation, engagation. Under investigation. Under review, under review. You hear this a lot like in sports, like the play is under review. The play is under review. Okay. Review is kind of an interesting word because you can pronounce it two ways. You can say review with a long I sound, review. Or you can also pronounce it with a schwa sound. You can reduce that first syllable because the stress is more on view. So you can say review. So you can say review or review. Either one of those are acceptable. Also, because under ends with an R and review starts with an R, you're going to link those together. So I hope you're noticing a lot of patterns that American English linking has. Okay, between consonants to vowels, consonants to consonants, things like that. Under review, under review. It's almost like you're making it one word, under review. And our last one, under stress. Use under stress, under stress. Okay. A few questions about these, let me know. We'll read them again really quick. Under investigation, under investigation, under review, under review, under stress, under stress. Take a quick look at our question here. So I was trying to say these are wonderful gifts in a pronunciation app. These are wonderful gifts. Gifts. We have a question about the F and the S. Okay. My guess is that, okay, so for the F sound, if you're trying to make like a F sound, F, what you're doing, the F is very similar to the letter V. So if you can make like a V sound, like in vest, vest, where your top tooth is making contact with your lower lip, you want to make contact kind of like right here. That's where you want to make the contact with your lip. It's not the outside of your lip, it's more the inside of your lip. Same thing with the letter F, like F, F. Okay? So that's going to be for your F sound, and then you just kind of blow. F, F. So like F, 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 like fun. Okay? Now, if you're using a pronunciation app, be careful with pronunciation apps. I don't know if you guys saw my video when I was using like Elsa. You know, Elsa, I think for like really specific individual sounds, I think it does a fine job. But in terms of linking and contractions, if you saw that video, then you know that like it did not like when I contracted speech or reduced speech at all. Like some of the sentences it gave me like a 60% or like a 70% or something. So just be careful of that. And then for the interesting. And then Sabina mentions that show the IPA without a T in gift. Let's take a look at that. I want to see what are IPA. So when I'm looking up IPA, this is, by the way, the source I usually use, Wiktionary. So let's take a look at gift really quick. See how they write it. Okay, so you're going to see here the short I sound keeping the T. I'm curious about why they as the video says it was Elsa. Yeah. Again, Elsa, I don't have any issue with Elsa. I think it's just take those applications with a grain of salt. Don't, if it tells you that there's an issue with their speech, there could be an issue with the speech, but it could also be that you're saying it perfectly fine and there's not really much of an issue. Again, it did not like everything I did, and I mean, English is my first language. So gift, we can see again, it has the T sound. What was the sentence? These are wonderful gifts. These are wonderful gifts. Gifts. So they're making it plural. So I would say you kind of have two options. So we're talking again about the word gifts, kind of diverging from prepositions for a minute, but that's okay. Again, another comment about Elsa. Look, guys, Elsa's trying. She's a really nice girl. She's really trying to help you out, but you gotta be careful with her, right? It can help you identify some common trends in your speech, but if you have doubts about a sound, you think you're pronouncing it correctly, but it's telling you you're not, I would consider asking for a second opinion. But let's talk a little bit more about gifts. So we talked about the F sound. The TS sound, when you're making that, is a little bit different than an S, right? Like it's like tss, tss. Think of a word like it's. You're it's not just is, and it's not just it. It's like it's. The T and S kind of link together. You press the tip of your tongue on your alveolar ridge where your gum and your tooth meet up there, and you let the air go like it's. And you want to be careful. It's not a stop. You want to make sure air is always going through your mouth when you're making that tss sound. A tricky word, for instance, for those TS endings, like a word like, for instance, like texts, and I'll write that in a checkbox, like texts. That's like kind of a good word to kind of test yourself with for that tss, tss type sound. Okay. So a gifts, that's kind of what you're doing. You start with the F, gif, and then you do that tss, gifts. Now, one thing that can happen with that plural, especially like in rapid speech, is you may hear some people dropping that T sound a little bit. Okay. Thanks for stopping by. If you have questions and things in the future, be sure to let me know. But I really appreciate seeing you. It's like gifts. Like I bought some gifts. You can probably get away with not pronouncing the T sound. Okay. So, for instance, like I bought some gifts at the store. My guess is that if you were to look at like the IPA transcription of that, some people may include the T sound, some people may remove the T sound. So I think it's relatively acceptable to remove the T, especially if like it's a word that's reduced or not pronounced super clearly. It's not the stressed word. I bought some gifts at the store. I think you can get by without that T sound. So Beta, I hope that helps. Let me know if you still have questions about that. We have another question as well that I want to make sure we get to. A couple questions. Next question was, how do we say English speakers? English speakers. I think if a lot of this kind of depends. Oh no, see, he was mentioning that the app made her feel stupid. Like again, like Elsa, that's not the goal of those apps. So if you start feeling discouraged using those apps, then I would consider not using them. Or you got to remind yourself, it's a resource, it's a tool. Elsa, Ibrahim, is it's an app. If you have an Android phone, I guess on iPhone as well, it like you can take like a pronunciation test, and it kind of evaluates your speech. But going back to English speakers, I think a lot kind of depends on how fast you're speaking. Like if you say English speakers, kind of end it like linking that sh onto the s sound slightly. English speakers. I wouldn't say I'm using the sh sound entirely for that. So I'm not saying English speakers. It's not speakers. It's English speakers. So I would say transition very quickly and slightly from the sh onto the s. English speakers. You don't want to say speakers. I would say there's a very slight linking between the sh and the s between those. I would say. But I think if you're speaking more quickly, you can probably get by with linking the sh onto speakers, and it still sounds naturally. Like you say, like there's a lot of English speakers. I think if you do that, that can work. Guys, that Abraham does not like tests. Think of it as a diagnostic, or think of it as a yeah, I can't even think of an alternative. It's a test. But a quick note about pronunciation is like these individual words. English is a language that can punish you if you have perfect pronunciation. If you pronounce everything perfectly, there's a good chance that you're going to actually sound less natural. Again, the more important things that I think are in English are intonation, linking, stress. These are the parts that I think are really key to sounding natural. If you perfectly pronounce everything and every vowel and every consonant, it's not going to sound so natural. What I see with a lot of students do, especially with pronunciation, we're targeting specific sounds. So then when students say words that have those sounds, they focus so much on the vowel and they add extra stress to those words, and it makes it sound less natural. So again, my suggestion is stress, things like that I think are a lot more important. So for instance, if I gave you a quick sentence like this sentence here, there's my example sentence. There's a lot of people here. People's my stress. I have one stress in this sentence. There's a lot of people here. Okay. The only word I really, as a native speaker, the only word I need to make sure that you really, really, really understand clearly is people. Everything else can be reduced and said a lot faster. There's a lot of linking. So for instance, you could say, there's a lot of people here, where it's like really enunciating every vowel and things, and that's fine. But in normal conversations or things like that, you're going to hear, there's a lot of people here. Notice what happens with there's a lot of. Instead of saying there's a lot of, it's more there's a lot of people here. So again, people is your stress. Stressed words are much more important in English. English is a stress time language. You need to make sure you're stressing the right words. Okay, so I wouldn't worry too much about the pronunciation of individual words. Stress is what the people you're talking to, that's what they're listening for. But yeah, if you have questions about that, or you want to talk more about that, you disagree, you're like, no, pronunciation of individual sounds is really important. I'd love to hear it. Let me know your thoughts. But yeah, my own impression is stressed words and stressing words correctly is more important. Pronunciation pills. That's an interesting idea. I have some doctor friends. I'm just saying. Let's go to our next preposition thing, kind of on topic. Some prepositional phrases starting with by. And again, by is typically going to be reduced. The next word after it is typically going to be your stress. It's like by chance. Quick note on chance, again, stealing it from French, but you'll add that American English a sound. And because you have that a sound plus the letter N. Okay? Chance, by chance. So beta, this kind of goes back to like gifts a little bit. For chance, it's like that TS sound again. Chance. Our next one, by mistake. No stress is on stake. Okay, by mistake. So So it also mentions it's hard to identify stressed words. I actually have that's actually going to be my next video is kind of talking about how to approach and identify stressed words in sentences and things like that. So keep an eye out for that. Our next one, by law. By law. Okay. Aw sound. Make sure that, again, the back of your throat's high. You got to be careful with those aw sounds. You know, there's it's called the caught merger, the Midwestern vowel shift. So you will find lots of native speakers that say the same sound. They'll say, instead of law, they'll say la, like everything's just an ah sound. And that's fine. If you pronounce this as an ah sound, that's great. I personally would pronounce it as an aw, law, raising the back of my tongue. By the time. Notice again that linking with by the. Two reduced words. Time is your stress. By the time. Okay, you can almost make it like a stop. By the time. Next one. By the way. You want to watch out with way. Making sure your mouth's wide enough and the back of your tongue is down enough. Okay, for a. Basically what you want to happen, you can even see my mouth, like when I say a, that middle of my tongue, front of my tongue looks high, right? A, you can really see my tongue. But the back of my tongue is down to let lots of air through. Okay, what I see with a lot of students is they don't have that back of the tongue high enough. I mean, they don't have it low enough, so they're blocking air. It's like way, but it's more way, lots of air. And then the last one, by far. You did it by far. Okay, like this was the best decision I made by far. Okay, let's practice reading these again. By chance, by mistake, by law, by the time, by the way, by far. Next up, some prepositional phrases with on. Okay, on. If I have any Japanese speakers here or Mandarin speakers, Chinese speakers, make sure that when you're saying on, that it's the back of your tongue stays down. A lot of Asian languages tend to have multiple N sounds, but English only has one. It's the one where you raise the tip of your tongue to make contact with the top of your mouth for that N sound. On. Honestly, though, you can, for these situations where you're using on to link, the N doesn't need to be super strong. You don't even really need to make contact with the tip of your tongue. Just make sure the back of your tongue is down. So it's like on call. Just on. Almost like a dark L type sound. On. You're just kind of, as long as you're making that sort of sound, because it's so reduced, you'll be okay with the on. Like on call. I'm on call. Okay. Or for instance, the next one, on fire. So you don't need to be like on fire. Again, this is a case where perfect pronunciation can affect how you sound a little less natural. I'll do more on. The house is on fire. On show, like something's at a museum. Or like this exhibit's on show. Our next one, on trial. Hey, Rana, thanks for joining us again. Really great to see you. On trial. Quick note too about the TR sounds. So you're gonna notice that when you're linking TRs, it makes like a CH sound, like, and then with a slight R at the end. It's like trial. Notice that too. The I sound is considered a long vowel, so you're breaking into two parts. Aisle, trial. It's not trial, it's trial. When you're making the O sound, I've been helping a lot of students with this recently. Just make sure that the tip of your tongue is down, gets to the bottom of your mouth, and you can close your mouth more. It's not trial, it's not it's O. This is a big thing for Russian speakers. This is a big thing for Arabic speakers. Just keep on watching that. Okay. Our next couple ones, on leave. I'm on leave. And then the last one, on the move. You want to watch out for leave and move because those both end with voiced sounds. So make sure your throat's vibrating. Okay, like on leave and on the move. You don't have to hold it super long, but just make it slightly voiced. On leave, on the move. Okay. Another question here. Some people say we should speak clearly, but if we're using linking, we don't sound clear. Yeah, so I think you how how do I put this? Both are true. I think that everything's dependent on context. There are times when you do need to speak clearly. For instance, Zubayd, I believe you mentioned you're a teacher before. So if you're teaching, things like enunciation, pronouncing words clearly is going to be important. Why is that? Because typically, if you're teaching, if you're giving a presentation, if you're giving a speech, you're typically talking slower. And if you're talking slower and you're also trying to make sure that people hear you and understand what you're saying, pronouncing individual words is going to be super, super important. So one thing you'll see is that in speeches or in talks or in conversations or when teachers are giving classes, they often use more thought groups. If you use more thought groups, you're adding more stresses into your speech, because for every thought group, you have like one heavy stress. Okay. So, in those situations, I think it's going to be natural where the words you're saying are going to sound really clear. Now, conversely, if you're kind of talking with friends or engaged in a setting where you're speaking more naturally, in those situations, I think those aspects, especially of linking and more rapid speech, are going to be even more important. Obviously when you're teaching and things, you're still using linking, but you do need to be careful of that. And you can see this at work. For instance, if you're let's go back to ELSA really quick. With ELSA, what you're doing is you're trying to get an assessment of your pronunciation. So you need to say everything really clearly. Not as many reductions, not as many contractions. Again, ELSA punished me. ELSA did not like when I said the whole sentences. ELSA did not like the parts where I spoke faster or where I used reductions and things like that. And it punished me for it. Okay, again, it gave me like 50, 60% on some of those sentences. It did not like it. Okay. Think of it, same situation. For ELSA, if you're trying to get ELSA is kind of like if you're teaching a class or if you're giving a speech. You want to make sure everything's clear. Okay. ELSA is not like when you're talking to your friend. So basically, ELSA is not your friend. I guess that's the summary of that. We also had a quick question about the word new. Okay. So this actually goes back. I did a video on this about the differences between American English and British English. I want to say I did the video maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I forget when. You can find it in the videos. But one of the differences is how British English and American English handled the oo sound. Okay. British English uses more of a U sound. So for instance, in the word like new, you're more likely to hear like new, or like what's another, or like duke. In American English, it's duke. British English, you may hear more like duke, or things like that. Again, I'm not a British English expert by any means, but it's just something I've encountered a lot with my students, especially those who are British training. American English is just going to go right from your consonant to the oo sound. Okay, it's like new. It's not you, it's just new. So it says Elsa is her enemy. We're like it's like a frenemy situation, right? It's helpful, but you have to watch your back at the same time. But yeah, so for new, those are the things you want to keep in mind. New. Go right from your consonant to the oo sound. Some other words to practice like new, blue, pollute, duke. These are all some examples of words you want to watch out to make sure there's no E sound before the oo. Okay. Now, if you're interested in things like this, you want to kind of work with me one-on-one, definitely I would recommend scheduling a class. It adjusts for time zone and things like that, so we can meet and work on your issues and things like that. We can start off with a pronunciation test. I'll be friendlier than Elsa, I promise. I will. I understand when you're using reductions and things like that. I'm not a machine. But yeah, we'll go over things to help you out and identify some sounds to improve your pronunciation. We can also talk about intonation, linking, stress to see how you're using them in your own speech and things like that as well. You can see all that at fluentamerican.com. And also, you know, maybe you're not like, maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't need a full class, but every now and then having someone correct my speech, you know. That's what our Telegram group's for. You know, a Telegram group every day. I post a challenge situation, and then you guys record your audios, and then I listen to the audios and I provide quick feedback. You know, that's exactly what the Telegram group is for. So for those of you looking for a more economical option or something in practice every single day, but you don't need a full class, the Telegram group is definitely for that. Okay. But yeah, let's kind of just read through all these things one last time. And if you guys have questions, I know I'm good. And Elsa's evil. So let's go over pronouncing these prepositional phrases one last time before I head out. With all due respect, with abandon, within walking distance, within reach, with a view, for hire, for ages, for nothing, for real, for sure, for a while, in debt, in case, in doubt, in theory, in terms of, under investigation, under review, under stress, by chance, by mistake, by law, by the time, by the way, by far, on call, on fire, on show, on trial, on leave, on the move. And we have the class thing. Cool. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. If you think of some other questions that we didn't quite get to, be sure to let me know. You can leave a comment. I'll be checking this video, obviously, after it's published and out on the interwebs and things like that. But yeah, I, of course, always appreciate your time with me. And I hope to see you next week on Saturday. Of course, if you have suggestions on other videos you would like to see, be sure to let me know. A super important question from Ibrahim before I head out. Do I understand the Irish accent? Well, it depends on what part of Ireland they are from. You know, if they're from a major city, you know, like Dublin or things like that, I would probably understand 99% of it. But if they're like from like the boondocks, like out in the country, probably be more difficult. It's all about the location. You know, in general, I think that accents from cities tend to be a lot easier to understand than accents that are in the countryside. And I think that's true across different countries, at least related to English accents. But yeah, thank you guys so much, my little YouTube family. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day, have a good night, good afternoon, enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next week. All right, take care.